Thanks for tuning into the Market Wrap. I'm Niraj Shah Nickey Mirchandani, and it turned out to be a pretty exceptional day of trade if you indeed were watching the PSU space and PSU banks in particular. But that notwithstanding, Reliance participated, some of the IT stocks participated. So that's the nature of the rally today. First, let's talk about the large caps and then we talk about the mid caps. So the Nifty should come up on your screen and the kind of moves that it made today. So about 0.3%. As I said, it may look optically fairly normal, but within that, you will see the gains that came in to both TCS and Reliance Industries, couple of percentage points apiece for the top two uh, largest market cap companies. So that played a part. But IT at large had a reasonably okay day with TCS, HCL Tech, Infosys all doing okay. But yes, Reliance clearly that big support. It was active since morning and stayed higher and closed higher. Not at the highest point of the day, but certainly closed higher. Ultratech, of course, managed to eke out 3% gains as well. What didn't do well? Um, a bit of an off day for Pharma. Yesterday, some of these stocks were looking very robust. And actually, this morning, I thought that Pharma would rise and shine. Somehow, Pharma took a bit of a backseat today, but that may also be a factor of how world over the markets have been a bit quiet. India has had this activity purely at the broader end of the spectrum. On the large caps, as you can see, just about 0.3%, so nothing too dramatic. Nikki, a bunch of names standing out, not necessarily because of the percentage gains, but because of the news flow surrounding them as well. What stood out in the large cap space?
Yeah, I'm going to be speaking about cement stocks. There is a lot of traction which has been building up in the entire space. As we all know, November there is a price hike which has taken place. Usually, November is the month where activity is a little subdued when it comes to the pricing power. But this time around, in the off season, also we've seen price hikes, and if reports start to be believed, even December continues to see some amount of price hike coming in. On account of that, you're seeing Ultratech Cement, which is the largest cement company, at least in terms of capacity and also the market capitalization, of course, doing well in trade. Of course, few days back, the company came up with a report saying that it's going to be expanding the capacity by 18%. And surprise, surprise, what also could be working well for Ultratech Cement is ACC Ambuja Cement's TKH. That's the technical know-how concern, because there is this whole gumboot around if the fees is increased by more than 1%. At this point of time, according to the parent agreement that they have, the fee stands at around 1%. If it moves by another 1%, that impacts or hits ACC Ambuja, entire EBITDA per ton performance by at least rupees 50 per ton. So clearly, on account of that, you're seeing that amount of traction also going in the favor of Ultratech Cement, which is not just expanding on, also enjoying the pricing power at this point of time. And a little hit coming in for the other regional peers is also a great positive coming in for Ultratech Cement.
And the mid caps was the more interesting piece, really. If you just look at what the mid caps have done today, and I think what stood out were the PSU banks, 7% on record for PSU banks. So really dramatic uptick there for most of the PSU banks. And as you can see at that screen, Canara Bank, PNB, Indian Bank, that whole pocket has just done exceptionally well. So Canara Bank, the biggest, highest gain since October 2017. It's sitting at 9-month highs. PNB, most since October 2017 again. BOB, similarly, highest gain since March, and which is a 9-month high. And I think October 25th, 2017 was the day when all the PSU banks had rallied post the recapitalization plan. And I think we're seeing a similar story play out here today. What didn't do well? Okay, there were a couple of others, of course, the likes of Woodco, etc., which did okay. But it was a day that was dominated by PSU banks. What didn't do well? Edelweiss corrected a bit, about 3.5%. For KRBL, about 5% lower. Solara Active, Pharma, and as I said, Pharma had a bit of an off day. And Sterling Wilson, yesterday's principal gainer, down about 3% as well. So there were a few unusual names which actually corrected. And the unusual movers, which is the PSU bank, stood out. I won't be surprised if you have a PSU banking name amongst that list.
Yeah, right at the top of my list there, Canara Bank, smart gains coming in for that counter. The bank has decided to raise in around 2,000 crore coming in from QIP, and the price at which they set the whole issue is around 103.5, which indicates a nearly 12% discount as compared to previous closing market price. The board would meet on December 10 to decide on the issuance of equity shares. What also did well in trade was TVS Sri Chakra, where the stock rallied more than 6.5% in trade today after the company announced that it's going to be ramping up the manufacturing at its Madurai and and the Pantanagar plan, through a capex of around 1,000 crore, and the funding will be done through a mix of both debt as well as internal accruals, on account of which you saw that traction building up for TVS. Apart from that, Dixon and Amber Enterprises, both of these counters rallied significantly in trade today. Credit Suisse initiated an outperform rating on both the counters, but I'm going to be just talking about Amber Enterprises, where the price target is around 3,000. What Credit Suisse has to say is the strong platform in terms of customers, manufacturing, and the track record, given the kind of valuation that the company is sitting at, definitely works in the favor. It sees the revenue PAT CAGR of nearly 15 and 28% respectively from FY20 to 23. So clearly some amount of growth coming in for that counter. But then, Neeraj, I'm going to toss it back to you and ask you about the PSU banking space, specifically the one with the mid-cap flavor in it, because seems to be like the valuation theme seems to be playing out at this point of time. Do you think there is more fuel to this rally?
So you would presume that the answer would be a yes, Nikki, simply because if we again kind of assume that the response to the Canada Bank QIP is going to be strong or is strong, then the one thing that banks need or NBFCs or financials need, which is capital, that is coming to them, and which is quite exceptional, right? This is, of course, the 1 month period performance, but essentially today's move, and in large portion led by, because people would have known that there is going to be some fundraising exercise, and if the fundraising exercise is successful, then the only leg of the market which had not rallied, which is PSUs and PSU banks, are now starting to rally. We've seen metals, right? SAIL, for example, in your sector has moved from 40, 41 rupees to 55. So there's a rally in some of the other sectors too, but PSU banks had not moved, and now they're starting to move. And it scares you. I mean, when you see a 3 rupee par name being up for 2 upper circuits on a day or on a trot, when PSU banks gain 35% in a month, it kind of makes you believe that we are at the last leg of sorts, but don't predict or don't go against the bull market for sure. Just very quickly, Nikki, the trade takeaways before we talk about the global markets. So, one, I mean,
I'm just going to add in, Neeraj, I thought you were a complete bull by heart, and you saying that probably this could be the last leg of the rally.
No, I'm not predicting at all. I'm just saying anecdotally, typically when such things happen, it tends to mark uh, a period wherein smart money starts taking some chips off the table. That's all I'm saying. But I'm no one to predict really, to be honest. Yeah, but it does look a bit sketchy, the way some of the stocks are moving. But just very quickly, the trade takeaways before we look at the global markets very quickly. And I think one, RIL and IT propped up an otherwise lackluster large cap space. As I said, Canada Bank QIP sparks out the PSU lenders, and the strong gains with very high volumes. And although pharma has taken a breather, but somehow, or just speaking to analysts or talking to dealer desks, the uptrend looks strong for the time being. So I doubt that this will actually culminate into much larger cuts for the pharma pack. So that's the long and short of it. But Nikki, what should one watch out for when it comes to global cues?
Yeah, at this point of time, we're looking at negative cues coming in from the global market, both in terms of US stock futures and at least even the European markets. Two factors that are weighing down on the market or the sentiment at this point of time is the US stimulus negotiations, along with that the Brexit talk. The market attention is heavily focused on state of Brexit talks this week. British Prime Minister is going to fly down to Brussels and probably going to have a last ditch attempt to probably salvage the deal, but then that's far-fetched at this point of time. We don't know how the whole trade will shape up. But with this, it's a wrap. Thank you so much for watching.